Well, welcome. Today, Lauren, Christine, and I are going to be talking about sun transits 21 and 51. So we're going to be exploring around and see what we can learn and what we can play with over the next two periods of 5.5 days. Just before we got on, we were talking about things trying to be controlled, people trying to control us, like dentists and doctors and that sort of thing. And sort of realization, it just slides right into sun transit 21.
Yes, yes, gate 21, the gate of control. It's not technically the gate of control. Technically, in human design, it's the gate of the hunter slash huntress. And it is about control in mostly in the realm of resources, right? So this is a tribal energy and it's very concerned with the health and wellness of the tribe. And this gate really wants to be in charge of how the resources are gotten, managed, dispersed, all of that, right? And so it's like I said, it's in the heart center, it's in the ego center, and actually both the 21 and 51 are both in the heart center, which is a little unusual because the heart is the tiniest little center. It only has four gates, and two of them are, right side by side here, which I think in and of itself might be an interesting thing to track over the next few days because this is this ego energy. This is willful energy. It's a motor and it has this, this is like the finishing energy of any project that we are engaged in. Those last little bits where you're just like, oh my God, is this ever going to end? And you're just like, "Ugh, I can just gut it out, right? Like this is the will center, right? It has a bit of pulsing energy to help get you over the finish line. But in modern day, we overuse it, right? We do a lot of stuff out of our will center that is just really hard on the center. And I think, quite frankly, leads to a lot of physical ailments for us as well, because the center really needs rest and it's not meant to work that way. And so I would say track that this next 11 days in particular, because it will be a nice long stretch, to see how, try to discern, like, am I using my real life force energy to do this thing, or am I really pushing and trying to get something over the finish line, in a way that feels, well, quite frankly, draining is what I think it would feel, and exhausting.
It's just interesting as you were sharing about that one because I have this in my design, and like the whole idea of control, I kind of go ick about. But then as you're talking about being the as a tribal and looking after the group and making sure all the resources are not, oh yeah, that just totally resonates. It's there. But like you said, it's like when it gets out of control and um I'm trying to just like, or anybody's just trying to sort of push everything through and make sure everything goes the way they want to go, they're not paying any attention to what's the natural flow of it, sort of what's coming and what are the possibilities. It's like, I know the end game and we're going to make that happen, right? And none of us knows the end game for sure.
But we wish we did. Well, I was just listening and I thought I would take this one way, but actually what comes up is this period right now we're in seasonally, and our work outdoors and in the garden. I have this long list of what needs to get done in the spring, and I break it down, but I don't get to dictate it. What dictates it is the weather. And I can say, gosh, those beds really need to get done. And my will can go push to go get those beds ready, which for me means broad forking and opening them up a little bit. But it's freezing every night still. So all my labor would just get sealed right back up that next night. And so I think it's interesting always when we look at these gates, actually, of the natural time period we're in, what's going on with the weather, what's going on with farming, because that follows the pattern closer than any other profession, if we want to say, that folks have. Um, and we also live in a time where farming has pushed all those limits and robbed us of resources. So that also aligns with this gate, because if we're keeping our resources, the resources of the tribe, we wouldn't push them to their limits.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and these gates, like you said, they are at this time of the year for specific reasons, right? Like we are in the quarter of initiation right now in the human design mandala. Everything is getting reborn and getting rebuilt and redone and moved and refreshed, right? And we're in right now also in this bottom trigram of thunder, which is the arousing, right? Thunder is this, very strong energetic that we're experiencing. So they do show up. I mean, it's taken me a long time to really understand the positioning of these, various energies in the mandala, but the more we study it, I think it does become clearer. It's like, oh yeah, this is that kind of energy, this time of year, right? So I do think that's a really useful thing to pay attention to as well.
There's a healthiness and an unhealthiness in the possibilities here, right? Because you were talking about like going out and digging in the garden when it's too soon. So there's like trying to force the will. And that like when we're talking about relationships and things where we do the same thing, that's when our ego is really, really involved. And then it's like it's kind of like it's all about me. And when I was looking through sort of like from the shadow to the gift to the city with this, it brought up something that comes out of integral thinking. And it's like this move from all about me as an ego to us, to all of us. And where we are in our world, where we seem to be going backwards here, because there's all this othering going on. Like, do you think about this way and I think about it that way, so there's nowhere to meet in the middle. And like, how do we come about all of us if we're just going to be so like all about me, or all are very, very tribal? And I was thinking about something that's going on in the province that I live in, and there's an argument over the treatment of children that are that feel that they're trans children. And there's been a lot of like allowing for puberty blockers and that kind of thing going on, and sort of like the looking after those children until they're of an age to make decisions. And sort of the more conservative view is like, no, we can't let them do any of this. And both sides say, we care about the children. And yeah, they do. I mean, but they don't see that the other side cares. They think it's like, but like just they just care in a different way, and then they think there's a different answer. So there's something like this is like an invitation to grow beyond that, because I think for us to move through the development of this particular gate, we need to move beyond our own particular needs and see that we are. I mean, we've got more in common than we don't.
Yeah, I love that, Lois, because this totally speaks to the polarity of this gate, right? Gate 21, the polarity is gate 48, which is the gate of depth. And it is a collective gate, right? And so we have these tribal and collective energies coming together. And I think what's really, kind of aligned to what you're saying is the gate of depth is really wanting to know things, wanting to know them deeply and wanting to understand them. And it supports this tribal energy of like knowing which resources are the ones we need to bother focusing on or not, right? Like that brings in that energy, like, is this the right one or not? But then also in its shadow side, it's not feeling like you know enough, right? There's this deep inadequacy in gate 48. And I kind of hear that as you're talking, right? Like a lot of the issues that we all see in the world, like the one you pointed to, right? Like it's an issue in many ways just because we all feel out of our depth, right? We feel somehow inadequate to the task in a way that instead of being vulnerable and saying I don't know and I don't know fully what the right answer is here, right? What we do is we get our backs up and we're like, no, there's only one right way to do it, and it's my way, right? And so it's interesting that these energies are really going to be alive, I think, for everyone.
And it's like, but through the growth in these, it's like sort of the control and the power that is at the shadow level where it can cause problems, when you take it and it develops, it can become a really beautiful thing, very really useful to society. So like the power that one can have to like make decisions and make things happen, and that there can almost be like almost like a regalness to it when it's done really well.
That flows right into Hillary Barrett's question from the I Ching about how can I become more effective? Because what we're really talking about here is being effective, because when we're on polar sides, nothing's moving, right? We're blocking everything. And in that process, no one gets cared for. No one's needs are met. And gosh, that speaks to a lot that we're facing today, isn't it? No one's needs are being met because we're all stuck on these polar sides. And when we visited this gate last year, I thought, well, what's needed, right? What do we need when we're really stuck on these opposite sides and controlling? And that's some kind of flow. We need fluidity. We need to be able to move between the ideas and taking the best of it all. And that was where black honeysuckle really came up. And black honeysuckle is a very interesting extract in that it is about efficiency and effectiveness, because it clears obstacles. And what we're talking and what you were sharing right there, Lois, that was an obstacle. It was an inability to see one side or another. I think black honeysuckle does that to us individually. I was just thinking that would be a really interesting test to take a group that's stuck on two opposite sides, and even a couple that can't see each other's sides, and what black honeysuckle might offer them.
It made me think about just as you're sharing about these opposite sides and sort of the coming together. And I was looking at Brina Magnuson's work, and she used the elk as the totem for this particular one. And I was thinking about being in Banff and watching an elk walk down Main Street, and it's just like, I mean, it makes the moose look small. It's.
Sure.
But then I was also thinking about, yeah, it's not a good time to go out for a walk, because when they're in rut, you don't get in the way, it's because you get between them and their harem and you're in trouble. So there's a like the how is that you said the efficiency, it's like how is this power being used?
Mm.
And I was thinking is there's like because Richard Rudd talks about sort of the submission of the masculine to the feminine, which seems opposite of the idea of using a male elk as the totem, but is like when the power becomes where it's flowing, and it was when I was watching your hands move back and forth, Lauren, I was thinking about this, is the power moving back and forth, and in the end, no one being in power over, that we're in power with. And so like you could be masculine, feminine, you could be the light and the dark. It doesn't matter which. But if we're in power over someone else or over a situation, I think there'd be a practice in stepping back and saying, what do I need here? Why do I need to have control of this situation? And the black honeysuckle would, maybe it would mitigate that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, listening to you both, it makes me think about the hexagram name, which is biting through, right? Which is this real intense energy to willing to, get through obstacles in whatever way necessary, right? And which can sound, I think, in some ways like a bit power over. But when I think about it in this tribal nature, and I think about how humans have mostly lived on the planet in small groups of people, right? Like it was, issues have always come up, will always come up between people, right? And in order to keep cohesiveness, we have to be able to bite through the obstacles, right? We have to be able to persevere through the hard bits, right? To get back to coherence, right? And so this energy really carries that. And so I think, again, just noting for ourselves where we see it, supporting us and where we see it thwarting us is probably, something we could pay attention to in the next few days.
And so looking at where in my life is this showing up? Because it could be like aspects of your own personality. It could be family. It could be, like it's like you look at the wars that are going on. So that there's this huge gamut of different territories you could be looking at where the control is happening. And how is that affecting you?
Yeah, and so we'll get to play around with that for a few days, and then we walk into the sun will start its movement through gate 51, which is also in the heart center. And it's interesting, I hadn't really put this together until earlier today, but gate 51 and gate 21, there's only, like I said, four gates in the heart slash ego center, and there is a big ego and a little ego gate and a big
Mhm.
will and a little will gate. And I hadn't put together that this is both the big ego, which is the 21, and the big will, which is the 51. And so the name of 51 is shock, right? Which many people find not happy, right? And so it is an energy to bring shock to a system. It's also the energy to withstand shock in a system, right? And so this, from April 4th to the 9th, will still be in this heart, ego, will space. There is definitely energy for something to come through that feels shocking, that feels unexpected. It's hard to say in the world currently. Every day feels like a shocking, unexpected day. So maybe it won't be particularly pronounced this year. But it is also, like I said, I think the thing that doesn't get talked about as much in human design circles is this ability to withstand shock, right? So, um, I find it certainly at this moment, I think about it maybe being a really useful energy for us to just kind of maybe actually recalibrate within some of this energy of like, ugh, everything's felt shocking, everything's felt, up in an upheaval and excitable. Like another keynote for this is excitability, right? Like you just don't know what to do with the energy. It's just there. And so, and also it is a centering energy. It's part of the centering circuit. So maybe play around with that too, right? Like this ability to withstand shock is very much about your ability to stay centered in yourself. And so some of that energy will also be an offer in this time frame.
I'm sitting here reeling a little bit from what you said about the big ego and the big will, because then I have the big ego and one of my sons has the big will. And I'm like, that's an interesting situation. But I was thinking about the competitiveness that shows up in this particular um, gate. It's that I need to be first. I need to show up the first. I need to be noticed the first. It and how that shifts as a person matures and grows, and they show up differently. It's like it's more inclusive of other people than when they're very young, and it's all about them, which sort of it fits with what I was talking about in Gate 21, the me to us move. But the shocks change too. Like, am I just being shocking for the sake of being shocking, or am I shocking to going to catalyze something here, make something different show up?
Sorry, I'm really lost in my thoughts on this. I was going back and thinking about how many shocking events have occurred in my life in this end of March, beginning of April period, and just or things I did like flip on a dime, which I can do well. And I think, oh, this has probably always been gate 51. I kind of love this gate. I love things that are shocking and a little bit like unexpected. Um, and I think it's a real period of growth. My memory of this from last year was that there were a couple things that occurred on different levels and with different force in my life, and it did complete a whole story. Like there was a growth cycle within those 5 days. So I would anticipate that. I also kind of like where maybe you didn't quite come out and say this, Christine, but we've been living in this, I don't know, news frenzy that's meant to shock us on a daily basis. And I wonder if maybe when we reach this point, we might just become immune to it. Like we can walk away and really pay attention to what's really important in our life, our relationships, our family resources, our gardens, our pets, whatever that is for us. I have a sense there might be an opportunity there for that.
It's interesting you say that because I was thinking about how we tend to normalize shock in our society. And it's thinking back to a poem I read years and years ago by Sylvia Plath that there was the thing about cleansing and washing things away, and women being very attached to their washing machines. And and so there was this like literal and figurative cleaning up and washing away of the disruption that a shock may have created. And so that the, we just then, like you said, get inured to it and we don't pay any attention.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because so the channel that this is part of is it connects to the 25 in the identity center, right? And the 25 is we've just came through that as well, which is this universal love, right? So the energy in its channel form is the channel of initiation. It's here to create new ways of being in service of universal love, right? And so this is the part that we forget about, all the painful things in our life and all the painful things in the world is that they aren't happening for no reason. And they aren't happening just to be, to make everything awful, right? They're happening in service of a greater good that we cannot yet see, right? And we all know this. Like we've all had pieces of our life where something went to hell and it was like you felt like it was the end times and nothing was ever going to be right in your life again. And then you gave it a few months and turns out it actually brought in some other thing that would never have happened had you not had that particular shock, right? And so like we know this about life, except for when we're in the midst of it, it feels awful nonetheless, right? It's hard to hold on to that. And so that is, and then the other aspect of this gate is the polarity gate is gate 57, which is the most intuitive energy in the system, right? And so it's an individual energy supporting your intuitive knowing about what shocks and what disruptions are actually pertinent to you, right? Like again, because we're inundated with shock and disruption all the time, and we don't have to pay attention to all of it. All of it isn't for us. All of it isn't moving us forward in a particular way. Some of it is though, right? And so this supporting energy, we're grounded at this time in this supportive understanding, intuitive understanding of which places to pay attention to and which not. And that's something I would really play around with in this time period. Like, what is the thing that's really capturing my attention, whether it's good or bad? That is something I think we're all going to have a lot of extra energy on offer for in this period of time.
I was thinking about the role of the media in this, and it just came as like the plane crash in LaGuardia just this week. And when you go and you look at the statistics on flying, it's still the safest way. It might be pain to do it, just getting through the airport and everything, but it's one of the safest ways to travel. And yet, when people see something like that, there's an instantaneous, oh, that's dangerous. Maybe we shouldn't do it. And you look at like the statistics about what could happen to someone. And when the statistics, like the chances are low, so quite often people are very worried about it. And there'll be things where the chances are really high and everybody ignores it. But it kind of depends on the press it gets.
Hmm. I think one of the things that we have to be really important of this week that you both are bringing up here is what what am I meant to be paying attention to, right? Which shocks or disruptions are for me, are where are my lessons? Because there will be, and they're going to be dialed up in these 5.5 days. And what happens, whether we're looking at an image of a plane crash or we hear some shocking news, we lose our center. And when that can be felt in a number of ways, but we lose our connection to essence, to our inner voice, or our compass that points north. And so this is why I suggested last year, and I'll reinforce that black currant would be so good for this particular period of time. But honestly, it's really good for everything that's going on right now, because what black currant does is it makes your effectiveness to process a shock, or it makes your ability to process a shock more effective. So it feeds the sympathetic response that your body, your nervous system dials into, so that it's effective. And so you can be right, this is going on, I see what I need to do, and I'm going to do it. Not, where are my keys? Where is this? Where's that? And it's a particularly good extract for transitions when you're hyper focused on one thing and you're going to have to transition to another. And what's happening right now is we're getting this hyper fixation on so many things all at once, or being requested to hyperfixate on all these things all at once, that we've lost track of what's for us and what we're really meant to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, you're really pointing to our need for our inner knowing, like tapping into our inner knowing. And I think a lot of us have lost track of, like, what do I really know to be true? Do I trust what I think is true? And so there's some work in there in terms of, like, is this just my fears, or is this something that I really need to be concerned about?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true, Lois. And this really, I think, is the crux of the work at the moment for anybody that's trying to do work, right? It's coming back to ourselves and trying to figure out our own inner compass, our own inner authority, because we're being shown very clearly that we can't, not that we could ever, quite frankly, trust anybody else's view of the world or take on the world, right? We're all differentiated beings. We are all here walking our own very singular paths in many ways. But there was a moment in time where there felt like there was some stability in the outer world in a way that you could rely on, right? And now what we're being shown is that's not true, right? The only thing we can rely on is our own inner knowing, and to be able to share that in a cohesive and coherent manner with others, right? And to be clear that my inner knowing isn't your inner knowing, right? We can have a lot of overlap, we can have a lot of things that we work together really well on, right? But in the end, we all have to get back in touch with that. And even though it seems like this is the craziest possible time to try to do that, it really is the most opportunity we're going to have to do that. And I think that there are lots of small practices, right? Like even just paying attention to simple things like when you want to eat, or where you want to eat, or what you want, like just what, like getting just really granular about, do I want to do that thing? Am I the one making this decision, right? Or am I making this decision because somebody else told me, oh, you should eat that, or you should do it at that time, or you should, right? Like just little inquiries like that can really, I think, make a huge difference in our own ability to get back in touch with our own authority.
Because people are really ready to take it for us.
Yes.
Absolutely. So much so that they've designed multiple devices to do it, right? We have a whole system called capitalism to do it, right?
And
So
that the algorithms, yeah.
yes, exactly, exactly. And so, yeah, and I think that's why one of the reasons we like doing this little exercise that we go through every few, weeks, because it's one of these things where we're like, oh, we just get to check back in with the outer world and see how it is pinging on our inner world, right? It's fascinating.
You know what might be an interesting practice, and that this is not just about sort of me practice, is like, yes, in paying attention to, is this what I want right now? And or what do I want? Is to encourage the people around us to do a similar thing. And if you don't want to eat what I want to eat right now, fine. You know, I mean, which might be a problem with some people and their kids at dinner time, but making them sit there and eat it anyway doesn't ever work. So, maybe try something different. Like, what do you want for dinner tonight?
Exactly. Well, and I think it's interesting that we're talking about food. Again, we're in this heart center. This heart energy is very much focused on, again, providing for the tribe. Much of that is around food, right? And so food is going to be, I think, a really fascinating place to look at. And what you just said, it's also good to remember that this idea that the nuclear family sits around dinner and has discussions, and this is what the right thing is to do for ourselves, is not at all supported, certainly not by human design, right? We are all designed to eat differently, to take in information differently, to really very much not be homogenized in that way. And so just thinking about this idea that, where are we being homogenized, which is essentially where are we following somebody else's story, right? And so we're doing a lot of that. We all do. Even when we're paying attention, we're still constantly enmeshed in old stories, some of which support us still, and many of which don't. And so I do think this energy is really going to be available for us, especially in 51, to start questioning that and be like, you know, should I be initiating something new in my life? Should I be initiating looking at how I can be and go about the world and life, go about life differently, right? Because this is the perfect time to try that.
I
So
think right.
I think we're complete. Or-
We always manage to hit that wall.
Yes, we do. So thank you for being with us, and we hope we'll see you next time.